Hi everyone, it's Melinda Jennison here from Streamlined Property Buyers. I'm just preparing this market overview to help you understand what we've been seeing across the ground here in Brisbane over the last month. The 1st of August is today's date, and the CoreLogic monthly data for July has now been released. It has shown dwelling values as a whole have declined in Brisbane by 0.8%. However, when we break this down into the housing market and the unit market, we can see that the housing market has retracted negative 1.1% in terms of its median value, whereas the unit market has actually increased 0.7% in terms of its median value. Now, as we have pointed out a number of times on our podcast, which is the Brisbane Property Podcast, we have seen a shift in the buyer demand from the housing market into predominantly the townhouse market, as well as high quality units in the unit market. This is something we've been reporting for a number of months, and it's now actually reflecting in the median data trends in terms of price changes. That said, we're also noticing that a lot of properties in the top end of the Brisbane property market are simply not selling, especially if they are listed for auction. So we're seeing the price gap between the vendors and the buyers widen in the top end of the market, and that's less likely to be occurring in the bottom end of the market. So the properties that are actually transacting appear to be the lower value properties, and that's also something that could be reflected in that median data trend. I'm just going to share my screen with you to provide you with a selection of properties that have sold just in the last couple of weeks to help you understand what I mean by this is a market where you have to be very selective about what you are buying, because the market is mixed and you can't look at any property and make an assumption that the value of that property has declined or increased off the back of the CoreLogic data or the median price trends. So I'm just going to share my screen so that we can have a look at these median data trends. Okay, so the first property on the screen here is a property that sold a couple of weeks ago. This property set the record here in Brisbane for properties that sold under the hammer at a live auction. So the property was at Hawthorn, backing onto the Brisbane River. The property was a large 1,215 square metre block of land on 3 lots. There were 4 registered bidders here at the property, and it sold. There were 2 registered bidders actively fighting it out. You can see there it sold for $10,210,000 on the 23rd of July. So strong bidding activity in this auction, and also we are looking at the very top end of the market here. So there was definitely strength in this particular property. Here we're looking at a price range between $3 and $3.5 million. This property went to auction on the weekend just past. So 16A Bunawang Street at Balmoral. Now, this property had 3 registered bidders, and the property actually passed in at $3.1 million. So evidence again of the fact that the price point between the vendors' expectations and the sellers' offer, it seems to be widening in this particular price point. Here at 63 Melbourne Avenue, Camp Hill, the same situation. You can see price range filtered by the agents between $2 million and $2.5 million. Again, an auction that just took place in the last weekend of July. There were actually 6 bidders for this particular property, and it passed in at $2,250,000, and that was a vendor's bid. So that's not necessarily what the market's expectations of values are. That's where the vendor actually passed this property in. So again, we're seeing evidence in this part of the market where the gap between buyers and sellers seems to be expanding. However, it is property dependent. If we come back over to the north side of Brisbane, another example here at 54 Anthill Street at Woolston, you can see where the agent filtered this property. The auction again was held in the last weekend of July. So an 809 square metre block of land, 5 bedroom, 3 bathroom, 2 cars. There were 3 active bidders at this auction, and this property actually sold for $2,150,000. Now, in the same suburb, 35 Lston Street, same size block of land, same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. Now, this property was listed by private treaty sale. It was on the market for 10 days, and it went under contract for $3,025,000. So that's $950,000 more than Anthill Street in the same suburb. So this is an example of where property specific information becomes so relative because it's not necessarily suburb specific or Brisbane specific. When you're looking at the same size block, the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, you can see there can be huge price disparity depending on local drivers of supply and demand. Now, very close to Woolston, an example of another property that has been on the market now for 91 days, so more than 3 months. This property was listed on the 3rd of May. However, you can see here the property is on a main road. Now, these are the sorts of properties that are becoming less in flavour, and the demand for B and C grade assets has definitely declined. And it's evidence of this, where you are on a main road, the property tends to sit on the market for a lot longer. So this one was originally an auction campaign, but it's been converted over to a private treaty sale. So indicative of the fact that there's fewer buyers looking for properties that, may be in B or C grade locations. An example of opportunity in the current market here in Brisbane, this property at Capera on the northwest side of Brisbane actually sold at auction in the last week of July. Now, this property sold for very cheap $640,000. At this auction, there was one registered bidder. The bidding actually did not open. Instead, the agent decided to negotiate behind closed doors, and then the auction was opened. There was one bid put forward and the property was sold. So in this instance, $640,000 purchase price is only just over the unimproved land value of $530,000. So yes, it is definitely an example of where we're seeing renovator properties or properties that need a lot of work selling for a discount. So this is the sort of opportunity that we're seeing as a result of current market conditions here in Brisbane. Just having a look at a couple of townhouses and units now. This gives you an indication of the demand shift that we've been seeing into the townhouse market. This property at Green Slopes, listed in the range of 600 to 650, or filtered in this way by the sales agents. You can see it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-car park townhouse. The property sold after the very first weekend of open homes. There were 40 plus groups through the property over a number of inspections, and the property did receive multiple offers. And this property achieved a price in a very high $600,000 price point. So it gives you an indication of how quickly some properties are still selling, depending on the product type and, of course, depending on the location. And you'll recall at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the unit in the townhouse market continues to grow in value. And that's evidence of the fact that we're still seeing this buyer demand for these sorts of properties in and throughout many locations of Brisbane. The final example I've got is just a small unit here on the north side at Gordon Park. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1-car unit. It does have a little bit of garden space out the front. Now, again, this property sold after the very first week of open homes. There were 55 groups that went through this particular property. 8 offers were received, and the vendor achieved a price in the mid $400,000. So it gives you an indication, again, of the strength in the unit and the townhouse market, as evidenced by the number of buyers still inspecting this product type, and also evidenced by the number of offers that are going in on these properties very quickly after the first open home. I hope that's been useful information for you, just to give you a snapshot view of what we're seeing across Brisbane. Of course, it is definitely not citywide in terms of the downturn, and it's definitely not across the board. It is very much property specific. So if you're looking for a bargain, there's not a lot of bargains that we're seeing out there. Of course, there are some opportunities where there's a motivated vendor and there is reason to sell. What we're seeing more of is vendors holding firm for the price expectations and waiting for buyers to either meet that expectation. So days on market are likely to trend to longer periods of time throughout this period where consumer confidence is delayed. I hope that's been a helpful update. As always, if you need any assistance here in Brisbane, please reach out to us. Bye for now.